Okay, I'd like to wrap this up with some finishing touches just to make the form kind of come together a little bit better. First of all, one of the things that I noticed that was bothering me is that I think that the line height is a little bit tight. So the first thing I'd do is go up to probably the body. I could also do it on the form. I don't have to do it on the body, in case I wanted the form to be self-contained. So that's something to consider too. So I can go up here to the form and I can say line height, and this can be just according to the form. Let's do like 1.5 see how that looks, save that, do a refresh. I think that's a little bit better. It's just got a little bit more breathing room. I think that it's much better, in fact. The other thing too that kind of was bugging me is I think that I'd like for the labels to kind of stand out with some color. So we have a place for a label right here, but we don't have anything there. So one of the things that we can do is do color on this. And I think that I'd like to do something that's sort of like a dark blue, and I already went ahead and I figured out a color, so you don't have to kind of watch me dig for it. And if we do a quick edit, you can see that it's a darker version of this color. All right, so let's just go ahead and save that and see what happens. And I think that I like having these sort of a brighter color. I think it kind of ties the blue, the other blue of the form in. And then I think it'd be nice if this paragraph text here was maybe bold or something. So what we could do is I'm going to do something that is form P. So any paragraph that's inside of the form is going to get font weight. Let's see, font weight bold. So save that and see how that turns out. And oh, except one of the things that we did, if you remember, is that we actually wrapped a lot of these things in paragraphs, and we can still address it without having to change anything significant. If you go and look at the things that are really bothersome, I think they're all labels. So we don't want the labels to be in bold, right? It's pretty much the labels that we want to not be in bold. So let's go find that label, and then we'll just go here and we'll say font weight, and we'll say normal. Okay, and let's just do a refresh here, and that looks a lot better. And you could decide whether or not you would want this paragraph in bold. I don't know if that's important or not, but I don't think it hurts anything. Okay, so those are kind of the main other things that I wanted to address. There's one last thing that I think would be important, and that is actually putting some sort of heading level inside of the form. So right up here we have, something that says volunteer sign up form. But it might be nice if we have like a call to action here, because realistically this would probably go on a page with something else, and if it didn't, it would go on a page that would have like some other kind of branding header. So I think that we could put some sort of H2 or something like that in there. So let's go up here to the HTML, and inside of the form itself, let's find the beginning of the form. Before the first field set, let's go ahead, and part of the reason I also want to do this is because this way, if you like what you've done and you want to use this in a project, I'm trying to also show you how you can modularize the code so that you can lift it and still use it in something else without having to kind of redo everything. So let's say that the call to action is going to be something like volunteer for our event, exclamation, right? And so that's some sort of like really obvious call to action. Let's save that, hit refresh over here. And that, that's very underwhelming. So we need to fix that. And I think what would be nice to kind of tie everything together with this form is, if you look down here, there's this beautiful, brilliant blue color, right, in the submit button. It might be interesting to see what would happen if this had a background color of that blue and maybe it was white text. Something like that. Maybe even this is all caps. I'm not sure about that yet. but let's give it a try. And I think instead of just trying to do it in brackets, let's just see how it looks if we inspect some stuff and we can grab some information from other parts of the page. So maybe for this part, um, we need to make a new rule. We don't have an H2 rule, so let's make our H2 rule, and let's do it so that it's the H2 that's inside the form, not the form, the form. Okay, so the form H2. And let's give it a color first, I guess. Maybe we can give it a color that is, let's just pick something right now. And then we can use our color picker maybe to come and spot pick. And we can maybe start with that, but I think that that is going to possibly be a little too orange. Yeah, it's a little too orange for me. So what we could do is we could pull it higher up, you know, so that it's got a lot more brightness, but it's still in the same color range. Let's try something like that. Let's give it that background color. So let's do background, and I'm just going to pick some random color to start with, and then where it says Alice Blue, so let's use this color picker and let's spot pick that existing color that we'd already chosen. Go up there and see what that looks like, and that might look okay. I think that we need to do some other stuff to it though, like for instance we need to give it some padding. Well, first of all, let's do text align center. That'll help a lot. Okay, and then we can give it padding. Let's do like at least 1 em and see how that is. That might be a little bit much. Let's see what happens if we do like maybe 0.5 or something like that. Let's give it rounded corners. So border radius, that way it'll match other stuff that we've done so far. Maybe like 5 pixels and see what that looks like. That might be a little bit soft compared to the things that are right next to it. So we could do it at 4. I think we also said we're going to see what would happen if we make it text transform so that it's uppercase. And that might be a bit much, but also don't forget, I think that we have another font that we can use. This is still using the Lotto font. And I don't know if you remember, but we did pull in up here in the head, you can see we pulled in the Montserrat. Let's see what that would look like. Maybe we'll do the font family as Montserrat. Ah, that's already better. And then we could do, you know, Arial, and then we could do sans serif as our fallback, final fallback. And so I think that that's already a lot better. And let's see what this looks like whenever it's pulled out. If I can get this to adjust. There we go. All right. It still feels a little tight. Let's make some more adjustments. Let's try doing a different font size. Font size. Let's see what happens at like 2 em. And that might be a bit big, but maybe if we just adjust the line spacing or the line height, we can, let's see what, maybe 1.3? No, 1 point, maybe 2.5? 2? 2? 0? Okay, maybe that's a better line height. Let's try 1.1. That's even better. And it's nice and bold, right? It's call to action. I think that I do actually want the border radius to be significantly more. Let's try like 8 pixels. And maybe because we're doing that, maybe these other ones can be a little bit softer as well. Like on the field set, for instance. Maybe those can be, where is it? Border radius is 5 pixels. Let's see what that is at 8. I think I like it better at 8. And that maybe even means that for the legends, we need to soften those a little bit. Border radius on those is 5 pixels. Let's see what it looks like at 8. At 8, it's too much. Maybe 6. No, I think we'll leave that at 5 where it was. So we changed the field set. We can't forget to go back and change that. That's important. And maybe on the submit button too. Let's see what that was. Let's inspect. And Yeah, I think that this one's using a border radius from something else, so we can adjust this one if we think we want it to be a greater border radius. So let's see what like 6 pixels does. I actually think that that might be better. So we also adjusted that. So we're gonna actually probably end up just copying the entire style sheet. Um, and then for the form, we added this. This is a new, because you see it's an inspector style sheet. We'll have to grab that separately. And then we have this, it's volunteer for our event. Yeah, and I think that this might be okay, right? It might be an okay thing for us to use. And then where it says volunteer sign up form, um, we can just change that for right now. In the HTML, we can change that. But let's take a look at this H2. Let's get this code from the inspector style sheet. Let's copy this. And something's bothering me still about this. Maybe it's just that the padding is too significant on the left and right. So maybe it can be 0.5 em on the top and bottom, but maybe it's 0.25 em on the left and right. That might be it. Maybe the font size can be a skosh smaller, like maybe it can be like 1.75, even 1.8 maybe. I think that's a little bit better. I think I feel better about that. So let's copy this. We'll copy this. We're going to go put it inside of our HTML, or excuse me, our CSS. Okay, and so we've got our form H2, we've got our form. Excuse me. In fact, what I should do, I'm gonna undo what I just pasted. I'm gonna put it underneath form so that it's clear that it's nested inside a form. I think that's important. And yeah, I think then the other things that we did, we need to go back and look at the real style sheets. Let's click on main, and we can just do a select all, copy that. And I'm just gonna come, oh, I can't do that actually. I should have done that part first. Okay, we're gonna have to do something over again. So I should copy the style sheet first because this form H2 part's not gonna be in there. The other thing that I could do is I could go back in and I could just copy the things that I changed. But because I don't completely remember all the things that I changed, I'm gonna just copy this. I'll select all here, paste. And then I still need to go back in and I need to put that new form H2 in. See it's not there, right? It's going to go right here. So let's go back and let's do that again. I can get it from this temporary inspector style sheet that hasn't been saved. We'll copy that, paste it. And now if I save it and come back over here and hit refresh, everything should look the same because everything has been updated. All right, and so now we've got this volunteer for our event. You've got this form, you've got your submit button, everything works, right? All of this works for autocomplete with the pictures still showing up. So we're good to go. And then you could style the rest of the page however you wanted. That's totally fine if you want to take the time to do that. That's up to you. But the point is that you could actually take this and you could lift the content of this page out. Now, where it says body, for instance, you wouldn't want to capture that. You probably wouldn't want to capture any of this other stuff that has to do with the body or this H1. And the reason being is because you might be using this in something else that already has body rules. So what you might want to do then for the font family stuff is you might want to go ahead and copy this. If you wanted to be able to just lift all of this stuff right out, you could go into form. Oh, I didn't terminate that. It's important. You could go into form and you could paste the font family there so that everything inside the form should have that also. And then although the inputs might not if I don't have that on the body. Let's comment this out on the body and let's just save this for a moment. Let's do a refresh and make sure that whenever I go to type in here that it still gives me the right. Yeah, it's still okay, it's still right. And then we could say the font size. this is where it gets tricky, because typically you would have the body tag of something setting the base font size. So you could go ahead and set the font size here if you wanted at the very top of the form. And then anything beyond that, let's comment that out. And then we'll take the color, copy that, and then we'll comment this out. Let's go ahead and do it like this. All right, so the color of everything is going to be, in the form is going to be this gray color, unless we give it some other color to override it. Let's see if everything still looks the same. Refresh, and I think we're still good. Okay, and so then, the point is then you could just take everything that's in here, and you don't necessarily even need this. Let's save this. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Let's save that and let's refresh this. And this looks a little wonky, right? So you could leave that if you wanted. But the point being is that all of the other styles that you've written are specific to your form. So far, I'm just double checking that all of what I'm saying is true. Everything here is all specific to your form. So you could actually just save this style sheet, and you could call it, like form.css, and you could lift this form directly out of the HTML here. Like you could just take the form portion, collapse this form portion, everything that's inside this form, you could copy that, put it in your HTML document, and then you could basically take all of this CSS and just add it in as a second style sheet that gets added onto, at the end of your other style sheet, and it would work, and it would be great, right? You might have to make a few tweaks here and there, but no problem. All right. So that's how you can work with this, and you've got a good form now. You know how to do these.